So this week's episode of the Ortho Show is a classic. We're bringing it back. It's a rerun. We're bringing you the Godfather of Orthopedics, Ira Kirschenbaum. Love this episode. Love this man. He just is doing so much for orthopedics right now with his journal of Orthopedic Experience and Innovation, democratizing orthopedic research to all that will listen, all that want to read. He literally founded the internet back in the day. In the early 90s, he was writing his own code. Just crazy good stories. You know, we have the power here at the Ortho Show. When we coin it, we coin it. That's right. Ira Kirschenbaum. If you Google it, he is number one. He is the Godfather of Orthopedics. You're going to love this episode again. Dr. Scott Sigman, hashtag follow the fro.
From Medical Media, this is The Ortho Show.
Hello, world. Dr. Scott Sigman, the original opioid-sparing orthopedic surgeon, healer of knees and shoulders left and right, here for another episode of the Ortho Show podcast. I am really excited. We have one of the iconic leaders of orthopedic surgery in the United States with us today. He's a colleague. He's a friend. I respect him so dearly, and I'm gonna lead in with a couple of things that I'd like to say about him. But first, he is the chairman of orthopedics at BronxCare Health System. But I like to describe him as the Godfather of orthopedics. He trained with the icons. He knows everyone, and everyone knows him. And a little bit of fact that maybe not everybody realizes, I'm actually going to give him the title of the creator of orthopedics on the internet. Dr. Ira Kirschenbaum, it is a pleasure to have you on, brother.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's quite a title to live up to, I guess, huh?
No, but it's so true. I mean, it's been such a lot of fun. We're going to talk about the journal as we get towards the end of the conversation, and we'll make sure everybody hears about that. But we've been doing a lot of great work together. And one of the things that I recognized, Ira, about you, and it just didn't make any sense to me. It was just like, man, this dude is so savvy on the internet and the computer and all of these things that he's doing. And I'm like, he's an old dude. He's supposed to not be able to know even how to turn the computer on, you know? And I'm like, where's this coming from? But if you dive deep into your history, it's a real phenomenal history about computers and how you started, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. It's been a long, super exciting journey in computers. From stories of me in the back of Larry Ellison's house, his $79 million mansion, talking for 4 hours about life in computers many years ago, to my very first website called Bone Home.
I love it. Yeah, I've been reading up on that. That's a fantastic name, by the way.
Yeah, that was a great name. And to what probably a lot of people don't know was the accidental way that I got into computers. A very accidental way.
Yeah, and I want you to tell that story, but it's like, unlike Al Gore Jr., I mean, like, you literally did have a role in developing the internet and what we call today as websites. I mean, we all take it for granted. Just click on the computer, you go to a website. Oh, that's a pretty one. But you were actually like making websites. And not only that, but you figured out how to do it, and you wrote your own code, right?
Yeah, my first website was Bone Home, and I got some space on a server, and I got a book on a couple of books on HTML, and I had to learn how to put words on the page and images on the page and animated GIFs on the page. And so Bone Home became that first website, which we started around 93 to 94. You can actually still see screen captures of it on a website called the Way Back Machine, the internetarchive.org. You can see pictures of Bone Home, which look suspiciously like a lot of websites today. I mean, just to give you an idea, at the time, this was 1993, 94, we had 1,000 royalty-free images for people to download that were orthopedic images. We had PowerPoint presentations. They weren't PowerPoint. They were freelance graphics. Freelance graphics, presentations for residents to give if they were stuck for a quick talk for grand rounds. They could download it for free and claim it was theirs.
Yeah, I was in residency at the time, and that was what we were doing. I mean, I don't even think the internet really started as the World Wide Web until 1990.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah,
right?
90. We were on it starting in the late 80s in a non-graphical user interface in a research lab I was in.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means, but I'm just an orthopedic surgeon. But no, I mean, I want to be clear for the listeners. I mean, literally, you went to the bookstore, you got a book on HTML, which is this thing on how you write, language and code for websites. You taught yourself how to do this, and then you sort of built this website all along while you're in the midst of being a busy orthopedic surgeon and taking care of patients.
Yeah, it was during my. Let me see. It was during my early years of practice, my first 2 or 3 years of practice, which, as you know, it's crazy. I was working well into the night. I still remember the publisher of that book was Rabbit. It was called the Rabbit series in computers or something like that. And every time I had to do something, it was like trial and error, and there weren't a lot of resources, but I was able to pull it off. At one point in time, Bone Home got 1 million page views a month in 1994.
I mean, that's it's just unbelievable to me. And then, but you took it further from there too, right? You got involved with Medscape and then WebMD. I mean, you rode this thing. I mean, and you continue to, right? I mean,
yep. So what happened was I got a phone call from some guys who were doing a startup company. That startup was Medscape, and they called me in, and they wanted to license my content on Bone Home because they did not have Medscape Orthopedics at the time. So I said, okay, what are you offering? And I went with my lawyer, who's really more of an agent, and they said, we'll give you $25,000 for your content. And I was ready to say, okay. I was just...
what year was this? What year?
This is I was 40, so it was, I'd say 1993, 94.
All right, so that's it's a change, a piece of change, and you've been working hard for it.
And just when I was ready to say, sounds good, my lawyer interrupted and said, no, you don't want his content. You want him. And if you want him, it's going to cost you stock options.
There you go.
I was very unaware of the concept of
Thank God for the lawyer.
So, true story, true numbers, because it's always good to get true numbers. I was able to get 250,000 share stock options at 86 cents a share.
All right.
And eventually we took it public in 1997.
And sounds like you did pretty well.
Did well enough to, not by today's standards of cashing it all in, but it worked out very, very well for me for considering the entire cost of Bone Home in actual cost, not time, was $3,500.
Well, that's just a
crazy story.
It is a crazy story. And, and everybody just sort of knows you and respects you for all the amazing stuff you do in orthopedics and bundled payments, which we'll talk about again there too, because I think it sort of ties in. And yet you've had this just amazing, computer career on this, not even on the side, it's a parallel career as you're moving on. You've continued to leverage that as you continue to be an orthopedic surgeon as well. So, but it's interesting because it's a great segue as to how you get these stock options. You put in your energy and your effort, and you walk away with something that's well deserved. But yet, one of the things that I also really admire about you is that, you trained with some of the, the greatest total joint specialists in America at the time, right? Dick Rothman, and Chip Ranawat, and there's a host of others that you comment on as well. And literally, you were trained by the top docs, and you had credentials that could have taken you anywhere you wanted to, private practice, New York City, all the things that go on. And instead, your path, you sort of harken back to your medical school and residency days, and you decide to go into the South Bronx, which is arguably, one of the most deserved populations for care in the U.S. And you set up shop there, and you build an awesome orthopedic department. So tell us about that, because I really commend you on that. It's just, nobody goes and does that when they have that opportunity to go elsewhere if they can.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here 13 years. And before I came, I was in a private practice, joint replacement practice. I was associated with Dr. Ranawat, not as a partner, but I was in the office, did office hours where he did office hours. My name was on the door. And so I had an office in Westchester County, which was very nice, and on Lexington Avenue and 77th Street, Manhattan, which for those of you who are not New Yorkers, I'm sorry that you're not a New Yorker, but
are there any New Yorkers left? I thought they all left the city.
Yeah, they all left for the Hamptons.
Yeah.
So I was there, and true story, it was 2007. My daughter was graduating from high school, and there was a party in the back of her house. In the back of, not her house, the back of a neighbor's house for graduation. And we were there, and I was talking to a guy who did his ER residency the same time I did my orthopedic residency at Montefiore. And he said, how do we get a guy like you? And he was the head of the ER at what was called Bronx Lebanon at the time, which is where I am now, BronxCare Health System, which is the largest not-for-profit, non-governmental hospital in the poorest congressional district in the United States. Okay, that is what it is. He said, how do we get a guy like you to come here? And I said, why get a guy like me? Why don't you just get me? And he said, are you serious? I said, I must, because that stuff just came out of my mouth. And to this day, I do not know why I actually said that, except I do remember the last year in private practice feeling, do I really, what was going to be any sense of my legacy? I was doing well over 400 joints a year, which at that time period was very solid, very good. And I was in a solo, and then I had a sports medicine partner for a short period of time, but mainly solo for a lot of years. And so they hooked me up with the CEO and the COO, and they said, what would it take you to get me down there? And I came up with a plan that actually guaranteed them that whatever they invested in me, I would build. There was a small temporary, I call it, department at the time. Some people who were not fully vested. All of them left quite quickly. So I built it from scratch. We started with me and one hand surgeon was my very first hire, Dr. Sepet Abagian, and one foot surgeon, Dr. Neil Blitz. And we started that. The first year was 2,500 office visits and 230 operations. That's what we took over. And we generated about before I got there, generated about 1.5 million for the hospital. We now have 14 orthopedic surgeons. We see over 50,000 clinic visits a year. We do over 2,300 major operations, and we generate, probably not allowed to say, so I won't say it, but quite a bit from that for the hospital, for the community that gets, since we're not for profit, gets funneled completely back in to programming for this community. And we call ourselves surgeons to the community. I'm in my 13th year. I just hired, we just bought a Mako. We're the only safety net hospital I know of in the country that has a Mako robot.
Yeah, we hear this a lot on the Ortho Show, and the idea of legacy and how you can pay it forward and be able to, take care of as many people as you can. And I think that It's so commendable to hear that. I mean, you're on Lexington Avenue, some Michigas guy comes up to you and says, "We need you to go to the Bronx and start a clinic." And you say yes. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Hey, you know what I was thinking about it? Do you know Spike Foreman? Do you remember Spike Foreman?
Yes, I do remember Spencer
Foreman. So Spencer Foreman was the father of one of my best friends from high school, and he had a Jewish hospital down in Baltimore, Sinai Hospital.
Yeah, Sinai. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And Michael Mott was down there for a while too, and he came up to Albert Einstein and just really made a huge difference. And just
he was a
great guy.
He was the CEO when I was a resident there.
Okay, got it.
Of course, didn't know him personally because he was the CEO and I was a resident at the time when we worked 700 hours a week.
So true.
And never ate. It's the number keeps on going up each year. How many hours?
Yeah, I know. But look, they're still working hard, so we can't. It's hard.
As I say, I sometimes say Rome wasn't built in a day, but I'm sure they were working every day to build it.
That's a great point. So yeah, I mean, so just an amazing, and what's great is that you guys put it back into the community, and and you build it, and these people again are so they need care, and you guys have built it for them. It's really a remarkable story, and so we love that type of stuff. So one of the other things I wanted to switch over to is another thing that you're involved in. And I was listening to your podcast with Kevin Brown, the Device Nation. We love that podcast too. And one of the things that you commented on for Bone Home is that you, in 1994, literally had the possibility of developing a bundle. You could look on that website and show the costs associated with an episode of care for a total knee, for example, which is like decades ahead of anybody what they were doing at the time. And that's really pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, if people go on the Internet Archive .org or Wayback Machine, you could actually get a picture and play with the internet in 1994 to 98. You could actually see my case. It was called a case rate. You could actually see download a working Excel document that had allowed you to calculate your cost to do a joint replacement or what you wanted to charge, and it came up with a bundled rate based on.
Do you remember what it would have been for a total knee back then, by any chance?
We were working with a base of about $18,000.
80.
No, 18,000.
18,000.
Oh yeah. We weren't messing around.
Oh, that's impressive. I mean, if you think right now, that's probably about 22 or 23,000 for a bundle right now for inpatient anyway, not in the ASC.
Well, remember back then, surgeons' fees were higher,
right?
And hospitals were used to getting more money,
right.
And so one of the insurance companies back then, Oxford, challenged people to come up with case rates, and so I took it a step further and programmed online in HTML and converted an Excel spreadsheet into HTML, and it's a workable case rate generator.
It's just so impressive. I mean, some of the things that we just sort of take for granted, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I wasn't talking bundles, but now you were talking about it in 1994. Very impressive. But what's also, you're sort of really a pioneer in the idea of high quality, cost effective medical care. That's something, you were talking about reduction in length of stay, again, sort of, decades before everybody else was talking about it. And one of your great passions, which I'd love for you to talk about, is your involvement with SwiftPath, with Craig McAllister, Vindasa. Tell us a little bit about SwiftPath.
Sure, I will. Well, I'll back up slightly and say that, I started getting involved in episodes of care and care management. I was working I was the chief of joint replacement and resource management for Kaiser Permanente in the Northeast in the early 90s. And we won the VOS Award for quality for decreasing length of stay from 12 days, believe it or not, at the time, to 4 days in 1994 using episodic care management. Let's fast forward. Craig McAllister, who did his residency with me and also replaced both of my knees, and I'm doing quite well with both of them. Okay. And he should not have sent me to collection. But that's it. No, just kidding.
Because there's no good orthopedic surgeons in New York, so you had to fly out to Seattle, right?
Right. I flew out to Seattle because you can no longer find a good orthopedic surgeon in New York City.
That's true. They're all gone.
And I didn't want to go up to upstate New York where Dr. Andrew Wickline is.
Oh, we had to get the Wickline in there. That's fantastic. The number one joint replacement specialist in all of New York State.
In all of New York. Yeah.
Just ask him.
Yeah. It was a shorter flight to Seattle than the drive up to Geneseo, New York. So Craig McAllister, who is just a remarkable orthopedic surgeon and thinker in this area, and I have been best friends for 30, 35 years. And he came up with the idea that we should codify some of this idea of the management of early recovery, but more importantly, the 6 weeks before to 90 days or longer episode of care. So he wrote an article that was accepted at AAHKS on this what he was doing outpatient joint replacement at a time when nobody was doing it. No one we knew. I mean, there were a number of people. I mean, in Ohio, they were doing, but not a lot of people were doing it. And then what happened was we wrote all the protocols for SwiftPath, which is an episode of care management company that gives the surgeons a custom surgeon authored guide, online patient engagement tools. And this was about 6 years ago we started it. So, there's a lot of patient engagement tools now, but I think we were an early entry into the field. The advantage that Craig had by me joining is I actually programmed the original database and app myself.
Shocking.
Which was rough because I actually had a client in Craig who, when I was my own client, it looked good.
Yeah.
Now he wanted me to change gray to blue or green. It was annoying. So we did SwiftPath, and we got a fair number of customers, which was quite good. The pathway was vetted. Bernie Stolberg was a SwiftPath user. Andrew Wickline, who does over 1,000 joints a year, is a SwiftPath user. Vin Dasa, quite a number of people were SwiftPath users. The app was working very well. And then we were approached by Optum, which is the practice management arm of United Health Group, a very large group. And they invested very heavily in us, I believe heavily, for a stake in the company. We since bought them back out, interestingly enough, but that was a real burst in the arm for us to take SwiftPath to the next level. It's very interesting. So that has been a great story. We ran roundtables, which I think no other episode of management company did. We have interviewed through these roundtables close to 100, 120 orthopedic surgeons using the Delphi method to try to come up with best practices with these roundtables.
So Ira, we've got a lot of listeners out here that are not necessarily orthopedic surgeons. So I think that they would love to hear from you why they should go to Andrew Wickline or Vin Dasa or Craig McAllister, because how is the SwiftPath going to make my mother's total, and she's listening, so you got to listen now. Right. How is my mother's total knee going to be better because she goes to a SwiftPath doctor?
Well, Andy Wickline just published an article in our new journal. 23-hour hip and knee replacement with 10 opioid pills or less, no formal physical therapy, all physical therapy through the SwiftPath method. And he has the lowest ER return rate and lowest readmission rate in New York State.
Super impressive. So bottom line is opioid sparing approach.
Yep.
Where you're basically improving the outcome for the patient by reducing, cost to the system, but also complications and all those other things that are associated with it. And physical therapy can be at home where you're in the comforts of your house, being monitored still, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
and making sure that they continue to progress well. So it's a positive experience for the patient.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I actually, for people who really want to know more about it, I actually programmed a website of my own knee replacement, which was done through the Swift Path method. It's mykneeyourknee.com. And I took a video of my recovery every day in the Swift Path method for two or 3 weeks.
So mykneeyourknee.com. That is awesome. I've actually looked at it. It's a great way to chronicle the experience of what a total knee replacement is going to be like, especially as a doctor on the other side, as the patient. So, again, great idea. Give us the website one more time, Ira, for the people.
Yeah, it's mykneeyourknee.com.
Awesome. So let's segue. Let's pivot now into your latest endeavor into the orthopedic internet space, which I am proud to be a part of, as well as on the editorial board. And that is that you are the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Orthopedic Experience and Innovation. And it's just amazing. I mean, when did you first go green on this? How long has it been?
It's been 6 full months.
And it's unbelievable how the thing has taken off, right?
Yeah, we looked at these analytics. We have over 30,000 page and article views in 6 months.
That's just unbelievable. And, and this is like when I talked about the Godfather, it's like, if you look at the editorial board, it's just, they're just an amazing group of people that you brought together from not just orthopedics, but industry too, right? I mean, people that are part as well who are taking part of this. So it's a very unique concept. And, I've been writing all these, I got my laser thing going on for COVID. And so I've been diving deep into the research world, and I understand the problem with the lack of open access for a lot of journals that are out there at this point. So for our listeners that not everybody understands the difference, what's unique about JOEI and open access for people that want to write an article?
Sure. Most journals, is some people want to know, you have a subscription to the journal. And if you subscribe to the journal, you can see the article online or you get it in print. A lot of journals have gone to what's called a feature called open access, which means even without a subscription, the articles that are open access, not all the articles, only the articles that the editorial board determined go into open access, anyone could view without a subscription. The problem is journals always charge the author an article processing fee. And that ranges in orthopedics from one of the journals in orthopedics at $4,700 per article.
So you got to write them a check for $4,700 for your piece of journal literature to be published.
To be published in open access. The least expensive is about $1,200 per article, and that is the article processing fee. So what I did in the Journal of Orthopedic Experience and Innovation, what we call JOEI, we have no submission fees for the surgeons, so they don't have to pay anything, and there's no open access article processing fees. It's just free. There's no subscription, so anyone could read it. All right.
And you're getting great material for that reason. Yeah. It's a paradigm shift. You can put your blog in, you can write a post. It can be one of the other things that it's one of my pet peeves is the pendulum has swung to this belief right now that evidence-based medicine is the only way in which you can practice. And experience is a 4-letter word. And you just can't do things because somebody told you it was okay to do it. You have to have a level 1 randomized controlled trial to be able to do that in clinical practice.
And we've sort of not rejected, but we want to add to the literature of various experiences in different communities in the country. So, for example, when it gets produced at, for example, the Mayo Clinic, of what the infection rate is, or what a readmission rate is, or what a result is, that is not America. That is a subset, cross-section of people who can get on a plane and afford to see somebody. Right off the bat, the patient is different. We at JOEI are interested in what is the same study at LSU, which has a safety net hospital. What is that study at a community hospital in Reading, Pennsylvania that does 3,000 joints a year? Active, high-quality orthopedic surgery being done in different types of community will build a literature to allow us to know the truth about the results and give people guidance. Wow, this is what it really is. So that's an example of one of the reasons we did this. The other one was there is a tremendous amount of knowledge that can be gotten through someone writing an article. This is my experience with this machine or with this technique. This is my experience with that. And given the right author, that could be a home run article and give people tremendous guidance. People comment on it. And the last thing is we actually accept articles from industry. They get peer reviewed completely, but an industry member could have one of their consultants write on a great new innovation. How many times do we see a new innovation in sports medicine and joint replacement? Company X develops SuperTac, and you don't see an article for 6 years on that. All right. But wouldn't it be great if the consultant who developed SuperTac wrote why I developed it, how I developed it, what it's doing. Here's the lab stuff. Here's what we're doing. And here's my early experience with it. There's a lot of value in that information.
I completely agree. I mean, innovation by definition is at the forefront, and it's very difficult to take that innovation and then have a randomized controlled trial based on that. However, the experience of that surgeon, that is one of the greatest ways in which I've learned. I mean, unfortunately, we're not going to society meetings anytime soon.
Yeah.
But, all of the times that I get together with my peers, I always leave with more than what I came. And it's not because they hand me a paper they just published in JSES. It's more like, dude, did you see how so-and-so did that on that reverse total shoulder or that lat transfer or, that distal, so you get this information that can only be downloaded from one doctor's experience to another. And that is so valuable, but yet there's never been a place for it to be published, to be able to be viewed. We're not all in academic centers. Most of us are in private practice and community hospitals. And so therefore, having the ability to have access to this, I think is really terrific.
And then sometimes I call it peer-reviewed rubbing elbows.
Yeah.
Because everything is peer-reviewed. And we're a very active board, as I told you. We now have over 85 members on the board. And the board members, we have a certain minimum of reviews of every article. And it has been a remarkable and surprising, I have to tell you, surprising experience. I am blown away by the response of some of the articles. I mean, we had one article from England on patient-specific instrumentation. Okay, beautifully written. The lead author was Lila Bian, and it got over 2,200 reads in a 3-week period.
Yeah, that's impressive.
2,200 reads.
It was a great article. I commented it on myself. I mean, because, look, the patient outcomes, it hasn't been shown, but that there's a change. But how about efficiency in the operating room? Is there cost savings there? Things like that are not necessarily factored in. But, that's why I love being a part of it. I will say this quite clearly. The Journal of Orthopedic Experience and Innovation, JOEI, is FRO approved, and everyone should be listening. Everyone should be watching and being a part of it. So Ira, look, I can't thank you enough. This is the stuff that we love on the Ortho Show. People that come and bring their really fascinating, innovative stories for our listeners. And you really, you just have so much that you've offered to all of us. We can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you, and what you're doing and what you've been doing with the opioid sparing. I've been following that, and it's been amazing. And thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, it is my pleasure. The Godfather of Orthopedics, the creator of orthopedics on the internet, Dr. Ira Kirschenbaum. This is Dr. Scott Sigman, host of the Ortho Show. #FollowTheFro. Till next time.